It started on an ordinary Thursday afternoon. The kind of day you forget the moment it ends. The sun had already begun its slow descent, spilling soft amber light over the quiet suburban streets. Cars passed lazily, neighbors walked their dogs, and in the middle of it all, 29-year-old Daniel Whitaker was trudging home from work with his backpack slung over one shoulder. Daniel was a simple man, reliable, the kind of person who helped friends move, who stayed late at work when no one else wanted to, who always had jumper cables in his car just in case someone needed them. People in his small town of Hollow Creek didn't think of him as extraordinary, and Daniel never thought of himself that way either. But on that day, a simple act of kindness would drag him into a story bigger than anything he could have imagined. Daniel had just turned down Oakwood Lane when he spotted her. An elderly woman was standing at the bottom of her front porch steps, clutching two heavy grocery bags in each hand. Her frame was frail, her back slightly hunched, and though she seemed determined, the weight of the bags was clearly too much for her. Without hesitation, Daniel quickened his pace. "Can I give you a hand with those?" he asked, smiling warmly. The woman looked up. Her eyes, a piercing shade of gray, faded but sharp, studied him for a moment before she nodded. "Oh, thank you, young man. These old arms aren't what they used to be." Daniel relieved her of the bags, surprised at just how heavy they were. He carried them up the porch and followed her inside the house. The moment he stepped across the threshold, something about the air inside made him pause. The house smelled faintly of old wood, lavender polish, and something Daniel couldn't quite place, like pages of forgotten books. The curtains were drawn, muting the golden light from outside. On the walls, old photographs hung in heavy frames, their colors faded with time. "Just set them in the kitchen," she said softly. Daniel placed the bags on the counter, then turned back. "Is there anything else I can do for you?" She smiled politely, but there was a sadness in her eyes. "You've already done more than you know." As Daniel was about to leave, his eyes drifted to the living room. On a small table beside an armchair sat a black and white photograph in a silver frame. It showed a young girl, no older than 15, standing with a family in front of a large farmhouse. Her smile was wide, her hair neatly braided, and her eyes, unmistakable, were the same piercing gray as the woman before him. "You look just like her," Daniel remarked without thinking. The woman froze. For a moment, Daniel thought he had overstepped, but then she whispered, almost to herself, "I am her." The woman motioned for Daniel to sit. He hesitated, but something in her voice told him this wasn't a conversation she had with many people. "My name is Eleanor Marsh," she began slowly. Daniel's brow furrowed. The name rang a bell, faintly, like an echo from something he'd once overheard. "I don't expect you to recognize it," she said, noticing his confusion. "Most people don't anymore. But years ago, everyone in this town knew that name." And then, like pieces of a puzzle sliding into place, Daniel remembered. The Hollow Creek mystery. It was one of the most famous unsolved cases in state history, a story that had haunted local legend for decades. In 1953, a farmhouse on the edge of town had burned to the ground under mysterious circumstances. A family of 5 had lived there. The parents and 3 of the children were never seen again. Only the youngest daughter survived. Her name, Eleanor Marsh. Daniel's throat tightened. "Wait, that was you?" Eleanor nodded, her hands trembling slightly as she clasped them together in her lap. "I was 15 years old," she said. That night took everything from me. My parents, my brothers, my sister. Everyone thought I was lucky to survive. But some nights, I wonder if it was luck at all." Daniel leaned forward, captivated. "The fire wasn't an accident," Eleanor whispered. "I saw things I was too afraid to tell the police. And by the time I found the courage, no one believed me anymore. The case went cold. People moved on. But I never did." Her voice cracked. "Because I know what really happened." Daniel's skin prickled. "What did you see?" Eleanor hesitated, her eyes darting toward the drawn curtains as though someone might be listening. She lowered her voice. "My father, he was into something he shouldn't have been. Deals with people from out of town. Men who came late at night, men who never gave their names. That night, I heard shouting. My father begging. My mother crying. Then the smell of gasoline." Daniel felt his chest tighten. They locked the doors. They wanted everyone inside, but I was in the barn when it started. I hid in the hayloft. I heard their screams. I watched the flames consume everything I loved. Her hands shook uncontrollably now, and when it was over, I ran. I never spoke their names again. The room fell silent. Daniel sat frozen, unsure of what to say. Eleanor's confession felt heavy, like centuries of sorrow compressed into a single moment. Finally, she looked at him with tear-filled eyes. Do you understand now? Why I never asked for help? Why I keep to myself? Everyone I loved was taken from me in one night, and I've lived alone with the memory ever since. Daniel swallowed hard. I'm so sorry, Eleanor. I don't even know what to say. She managed a faint smile. You don't have to say anything. You've already done what no one else has in years. You listened. As Daniel rose to leave, Eleanor reached for his hand. Her grip was surprisingly firm for her age. One last thing, she said. When you carried those groceries inside, I saw something in your eyes. Something familiar. My brother, Henry, he had eyes just like yours. Daniel blinked. Your brother? She nodded slowly. You remind me of him so much it almost hurts. But Henry, he didn't die in that fire. At least, I don't think he did. Daniel froze. What do you mean? I've dreamed of him for 70 years. Sometimes I hear his voice calling my name. Sometimes I wake up certain that he's still alive, somewhere out there. And sometimes, she trailed off, her gaze drifting toward the window. Sometimes I think the men who came that night took him. Daniel's stomach dropped. You mean, he might still be out there? Eleanor's gray eyes locked on his. That's the mystery, Daniel. That's why I've kept quiet all these years. Because if Henry survived, then the people responsible are still out there too. Daniel left her house that evening in a daze. The air outside felt heavier, the shadows longer. Every sound, a passing car, a barking dog, the rustle of leaves, carried a strange new weight. He had gone to help an old woman with groceries. He left with the burden of a 70-year-old secret. As he walked home, her words echoed in his mind. What if Henry was still alive? What if the truth about that night had been buried on purpose? And what if, by stepping into Eleanor's house, he had unknowingly stepped into the very mystery that had consumed her life? That night, Daniel sat awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. He thought about Eleanor's haunted eyes, about the fire, about the missing brother, and he thought about the way she had looked at him, as though fate itself had brought him to her doorstep. The question that lingered was not just his anymore. It was his too. After 70 years, was the Hollow Creek mystery truly unsolved, or had it just been waiting for the right person to uncover it? Hourglass with flowing sand. And so, I leave it to you, the audience. If you were Daniel, would you go back tomorrow and ask Eleanor to tell you everything? Or would you walk away before the shadows of the past reached for you too?